And so I guess we'll get started with our first speaker. So Kay Everts is the founder and manager of Seeds for Sharing, a seed lending library program serving the Oak Lodge and Gladstone public libraries in Clackamas County. I don't know if I said that correctly, Oregon. She teaches a gardening class series with seed saving woven throughout and manages Oak Grove New Urban Farm, where she grows seeds to supply 12 Clackamas County seed libraries. An adaptation, landraised gardener, and dedicated seed keeper, Kate is a graduate of the Rocky Mountain Seed Alliance Seed School. She also serves on the advisory board of Going to Seed, a nonprofit committed to shifting agriculture towards adaptation, community, and diversity. You can take it away, Kate.
Thank you, Rania. Okay. Okay. My talk today is on creating a sustainable seed lending library, or how to get your patrons to save and return seeds. If you ask your seed lending library patrons why they're not returning seeds, what would they say to you? Well, I found that there were a number of barriers expressed by people. Some said, I don't know how to plant for seed saving. I've heard something about isolation distances. I'm not sure what that is. And so I'm not moving forward with it. Or I don't know how to harvest at the right time. Or I've got seeds, but they're awfully dirty. I don't know how to clean them. So many people are afraid that they'll do things wrong. Then, for a large number of people, there's life's distractions. Out of sight, out of mind. They get busy, they don't think about it. So, I came up with a series of gardening classes and handouts that include planting for seed saving, harvesting times, cleaning seeds, and I try to give people hands-on experiences for seed saving and seed cleaning. And I also build some information, hopefully helpful to them, into our seed return slips. So I'm finding that repetition often helps get people past the, oh, I forgot about it phase. Here's a snapshot of our gardening classes. So in February and May, we are doing planting and planting classes, the spring garden, summer garden. March, we have a resilient gardening and adopt a crop class, and I'll go into more detail on each of these. June, we do a planting for fall, and August, tomato tasting, tomato seed saving. November, it's a seed cleaning workshop. So the seed saving components you can see on the right side. There's some basics that I touch on in a few of the classes, and then the March class is a deeper dive into seed saving. So February and May, the planning and planting classes with basics of easy seed saving included. And in the May class, well, I like to grow tomato starts. So I give away a lot in the May class, and I ask people to go home, plant them, and then bring back some tomatoes for the August tomato tasting and seed saving class. And there's a picture of our tomatoes that people brought back. Here's the slide I put in for easy seed saving. I tell people, look, there's 4 really easy crops to save. You can be saving these: peas, beans, lettuce, and tomatoes. And what makes them all easy is they only require a minimum of 10 feet separation between blooming varieties of the same crop. That prevents crossing. These are all self-pollinated crops where the flower contains both the male and female parts, and the flower pollinates inside the closed flower before that flower opens. So it's harder for insects to get in to move pollen from one variety to another. And I illustrate with this drawing. Here's your garden. And if you wanted to plant Sierra lettuce, for instance, in bed A and Pablo lettuce in bed B, all you have to do is don't let the Pablo go to seed. And if you let Sierra go to seed, you can save those seeds successfully. And you've got your 10 feet isolation. And way over in bed E, you can plant Ice Queen lettuce and save the seeds as well. Tomatoes, also easy. Here's my block of Principe Borghese tomatoes in bed A, and it's more than 10 feet away from bed D, where I like to plant a whole bunch of different varieties of tomatoes. So that's easy seed saving as well. And over in bed D, where I've planted a wide variety, if I want to save some of those seeds, I can. And if I turn them into my seed library, my seed check-in slip, which you'll see in another slide, asks, did you plant any other varieties of the same crop? If your answer is yes, then we ask, how far apart? Okay, 3 feet. All right, so then we would mark that the tomato seeds as a 3% chance of crossing. And people who want to take that seed can decide if that's too high of a risk or if they want to take their chances. Beans, of course, are very easy to save. I've put Whipple beans in bed B and Grenoble beans in bed E, more than 10 feet apart. I can save both. And of course, I always suggest to people that they save seeds from their very best plants. Never save seeds from a diseased or weak plant, and don't try to save seeds from hybrids for the seed library. In March, we do a deeper dive into seed saving. This is when I roll out our community growing project, where we, as a county, in our 12 seed libraries, engage in growing 3 different crops for the seed libraries. More on that in a moment. It's also a time to talk resiliency, and I suggest to people, if you want to be a resilient gardener, individual, you need to learn how to save your own seeds. During the pandemic, it was really hard to get seeds from seed companies. They fell way behind or ran out. Here's my agenda for the March class. Talking again about resiliency in uncertain times, a theme I borrowed from Carol Deppe from one of her books. And of course, we talk about the importance of local food and local seeds. And then we roll out the Clackamas Community Growing Project. And here's the 3 crops they could grow. Runner beans, and you see how the seeds are all mixed up. And then there's the Cucurbita maxima, a winter squash, and Cucurbita moschata, butternut squash. People can sign up for any or all 3 crops, and we give them only a small amount of seeds because we don't want them to feel like it's an overwhelming commitment. We also cover in this class some standard seed saving, how to keep things pure, avoid crosses, and adaptation method, which is also known as land races, how to mix things up intentionally. This is our 4th year of doing our county-wide grow project, and we've had a lot of fun with it. When people sign up, they'll use the zine on the left, sign up now. There's a QR code that takes them to an online form that they fill out, and depending on what they select, there's the zine that they get, and we'll package up a small amount of seeds, put it right in the zine, and get it out to the 12 different libraries for them to go in and pick up. At the end of the season, we have a harvest party, and people proudly bring in one of the squash they grew. We'll cut the squash, cut a slice off, bake it, and at least 8 people will taste each squash and rate the squash on flavor. We only save seeds from the very best tasting squash. And then those seeds go forward into next year's community grow project. We've had about 115 people sign up for the project this year. Here's our handout front page for 4 easy crops, easy to save seeds from: beans, peas, tomatoes, and lettuce, as I mentioned before. And this is geared for walking people through the process, making them feel comfortable with it. And here's the backside on adaptation seed saving, where we want to intentionally mix up the genetics of the species of the crop. We feel that by doing this, it strengthens the crop and makes it more resilient, more able to withstand climate change or any variation in weather patterns or gardening habits. And this walks people through what the crossing rate is, and also a caution in the upper right on things you might want to avoid as far as crossing. For people who are really into seed saving, we provide the handout from Seed Savers Exchange that's very detailed and goes through a lot of different crops. And in the class, I'll walk through the different columns and what the information means to get people comfortable with it. Then in our November class, it's actually a 2-hour workshop, I ask people to bring in their seeds just as they've harvested them. I bring in my Winnow fan, I bring in my fancy set of screens, but I also like to bring in things from the kitchen, colanders, strainers, to show people that in their own home, they have a number of different things that they could use to work on cleaning their seeds. And we have a lot of fun with this. In our seed cabinet, for some crops that aren't too hard for people to save seeds from, we will include a little slip that they can take home, and it gives them planting instructions and then seed saving instructions, all on the front side. And then on the back side, here's our standard seed return slip for our library. And there's my questions I mentioned. Did you grow any other varieties of this plant? If yes, how far apart were they? And alternatively, did you hand pollinate or isolate your saved variety? So an experienced seed saver will know, oh yeah, those tomatoes, I slipped a little blossom bag over to keep them from crossing from the plant that was right next to it. So it gives us enough information to help advise other seed library customers. It gives them enough information to make a decision on if they want that seed or not. None of my gardening classes would be complete without putting in an ad for trying to recruit volunteers for our seed farm. And we never have quite enough volunteers. But you know, there's nothing like getting together with another group of gardeners and working in a garden like this, and we all just love it. It's very satisfying. So if you don't have a seed garden, consider starting one. This piece of property is on a high school, and they we lease it from them for $0, which is wonderful. And we grow, well, last year we grew, I think it was 98 different varieties. And so after we harvest all of the seeds, we dry them down and then um, we package them up and they go into the 12 seed libraries in our county. Every single public library in our county now has a seed library, all 12. So to recap, there's barriers out there. Ask your patrons, hey, what's stopping you from returning seeds? And see what they say. And then see if you can come up with a solution. Now, gardening classes. Okay, you might need a couple people to collaborate. For instance, in your community, you might have people who are really great gardeners, but they don't know seed saving. And you hopefully have some people who are really good seed savers. If you can find a combination of the two, see if you can get them to collaborate in putting together some classes that you can offer in your library. Look at it as a way to teach your patrons what they don't know, a way to break down those barriers that are stopping them from returning seeds. Okay, and with that, I'm ready for questions.
Okay, so the questions in the chat have to do with general things that aren't necessarily with regards to the talk. So I'll do those last, but I have several questions after hearing you speak. So just because I'm seeing what stops me from saving seeds. And then I speak to my people in my community because I live in a very big gardening community, and everyone is so interested. But then when it comes time to act, people don't show up, which is what I'm finding. So the first thing I wanted to ask is, how do you get the word out? Like I saw your flyer, but is it through you go to associations, organizations, the library? How do you get people to know about what you do?
Well, I've built up an email list over time. When we started offering gardening classes, we had a sign-in sheet in which they could check boxes. I want more information on the seed garden. I want more information on seed saving, etc. I want to be on your garden class list. So I've compiled a fairly large list over time. So that's one way. So for every class, I'll send out an email. And for every time we go into the seed garden, which is 2 times a week, I've got my volunteer group there. I always send them an email ahead of time. I tell them what the weather forecast is and what we'll be doing in the garden that day. Let's see. The libraries themselves have quite a good group of ways that they advertise. They'll hit the local free paper. Most communities have one, a weekly. They've got a Facebook page. They'll hit, I think they do some other social medias as well. They put up huge posters in the library. Trying to think of what else. And yes, I have gone to different events, especially early on when I was trying to build up my mailing list. I go to farmers markets with
Oh,
jars of
that's a good
seeds.
idea. Oh, that's a
Yeah.
good idea.
And often at a farmers market, they'll if you're saying, "Hey, I'll show up with a bunch of free seeds for people," they'll give you a table. You won't have to pay for it,
Okay.
right?
Oh, yeah. Of course, if it's
And
free.
yeah,
So someone has,
oh,
but
and then
oh,
you can
sorry.
also sometimes get a spot at the Master Gardeners event, uh, especially if they have a seed event each year. I would show up there with seeds from the seed library and posters advertising, "Hey, we've got a seed library. Here's what it does, and here's the seeds you can come and get from us."
Okay. So
Yes,
yeah, giving the freebies and then because and
freebies,
it's
yeah.
also because someone asked, which I the schools in my community, they have gardens in the back of all of them, but someone pointed out that they have a gardening club. But I noticed at our seed exchange day that there wasn't any younger people. So any ideas on how to get the younger generation?
Wow.
That's a hard
That
one.
ask Rebecca when she speaks.
Yeah.
I think she's a pro with working with younger people.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, how do you display the informational slips with growing and saving directions in a binder or together with plants they pertain to?
Plants they pertain to. So our cabinet is a series of drawers, and we we're one of the libraries where we do not pre-pack seeds for people. We put the seeds in Ziploc bags that are 4 inches by 5 inches in height, and they're thick. They're 4 mil plastic, so we can freeze seeds in it without air
Okay.
going into the packet. And so they all stand up in drawers. And so we've got another divider that says for each thing, like it might be here's lettuce, and then right behind it is growing, growing and seed saving instructions. And then we'll put those slips there. We
Okay.
also, though, keep a whole bunch of just seed return slips without anything on the back up on the top of our seed cabinet as well for people to take.
Yeah, that's a good way. And then someone says, about how many volunteers does it take to manage the seed garden, and how did you go about starting it or starting that?
Wow. Well, we currently have 8 volunteers,
Okay.
and our we're gardening on 9,600 square feet. That's big. It's like 160 feet long by 60 feet wide, if you can visualize that. And the weeds sometimes get the best of us. Especially like right now, we're hustling trying to get everything planted. So the potatoes we put in on St. Patty's Day, we can't get to weeding them right now because we've got to get our other crops planted so that they'll make it all the way through the season to harvestability. Um, there's, I don't know, maybe most organizations find there's never quite enough volunteers, but we make do with who we have, and they're all great gardeners, and they love, love, love being there, and the camaraderie also. So we tend in the garden, since I manage it, I'll say to people when they show up, okay, we have this to do. What would you like to do? And people will work within their limitations as well. Most of our volunteers are older, but not all of them. And so some of the younger, strong ones get the heavier lifting, and they know that they're the ones that really kind of need to do that. Some people can't get down on their knees, so they get a standing up job. So you figure out how to get the individual and work well
Yeah, with
suited
with
to
it.
each other.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then, so this is, so I relate to this question. When is it best time of the year to have the hand-on experience for seed saving techniques? So I
Oh,
think, yeah, in the sense that right now I'm getting my garden ready and I'm like, should I
yeah.
be planning what I'm gonna save? Like you know what I mean? It's
So do you mean the cleaning part?
well, when is the best time of the year to have the hands-on experience for seed saving techniques? So
Right, right. So the hands-on, I'd say it really has to be in the fall. If you are in the northern hemisphere, basically, because you need to, well, here, let me take a step back. So a really good time to start talking about planting for seed saving is the spring.
yeah.
People here are dreaming about their garden,
Mm.
and they can't do anything because it's too cold. So they're planning, they're deciding what new varieties do I want to grow. And they're laying out in their minds or on paper where they can plant everything. And of course, I talk rotating crops and whatnot. And so that's a good time to suggest, okay, think about if you want to save bean seeds for the garden, which variety would you like to save? And can you plant it 10 feet away from other varieties? Or do you want to save a mixed up, adaptation variety, in which case you don't have to isolate? Okay, so then you literally are planting that seed in their head at that time, right? And then you hit them again in May because then they're putting in their warm season crops or they're about to. And so you're reminding them at that point, don't forget about isolation.
Yeah.
And then the actual hands-on needs to take place when when things are dry. So, for instance, if it's bean seeds, here we're picking dry beans August, September. So usually people are very busy in that time period harvesting everything. So for us, just sequence wise, in November is it could be a little earlier too, is a good time to pull together a workshop for people to clean their completely dry seed pods, get them
Okay.
clean. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's it because I'm realizing I need to start planning the seed saving part at the start of the after looking at your slides. So, okay. So next one, someone said, what happens when the schools, colleges are closed for the holidays regarding both harvesting and collecting seeds?
Well, unfortunately, at our garden, the school kids are not involved. They had a number of years ago, the way the garden got started is our high school had been an alternative high school. And so the students were, this was like, it was, I guess you'd call it maybe the school of last resort for a lot of students who had, who the regular school system didn't work for them. And so the curriculum was very flexible. And the science teacher ran a gardening program there. And it was the best attended program in the entire school. But then, somewhere along the line, they decided to become a fully accredited teach the curriculum school, and they gave up the garden. And so we took it over. But unfortunately, the students now, the classes are back to back, and we haven't figured out a way to integrate the students.
Mhm. Okay, so then we have, well, there's only 1 minute left.
Uh-huh.
So I just wanted to ask, so is there a place that people can access all your wonderful resources or that you do that you have videos that you talk about what you, like just your knowledge or a place that people can access?
Let's see. I have a Seeds for Sharing Facebook page. Some things are there. Mm, I think we can ask Rebecca about
Okay.
how to share some of these items. Like, for instance, if people want the seed saving handout, that front to back thing, and also maybe the slide that on how to plant for seed saving, those might be things people
Yeah.
perhaps might want. And after the sessions are over, perhaps we can figure out a way to make them accessible.
Okay. So time's up. I could keep asking questions
Mhm.
forever, but we'll get on to the next speaker. And just so everyone knows, I'm going to keep running through the questions and we'll ask them because some of the questions at the start are about other libraries. So I'll just read them out because I'm not sure if people can see them. So thank you so much, Kay. That was very impressive.
Thank you, Raina.
Okay, so our next speaker is Julia Dakin. She is the co-founder of Going to Seed, an organization dedicated to shifting agriculture towards adaptation. community and diversity. She leads the Fields of Dreams seed project in Mendocino County, a community seed garden and seed library. Julia also co-founded and fundraises for this local seed coalition and supports the Seed Library Network through grant writing. Her work centers on empowering growers to build resilient, locally adapted food systems that strengthen community food diversity. Wow, that's impressive, Julia. So take it away.
Thank you. And thanks, Kay. That was really good. And I'm gonna speak about local seeds today, lessons from a year of listening. I have had the pleasure of working with some of you, I'm sure, in this project we did last year, 100 interviews, written responses, and we interviewed seed librarians, seed keepers, organizations, farmers, all kinds of people to understand the challenges and opportunities and where people are at. And that is moving into this year. We're doing a labeling and awareness campaign from our lessons from that year. So I'm going to speak to a little bit about what we learned. But first, I just wanted to say something that I think I already knew, but was reinforced was the incredible work that so many people are doing in their communities with seeds, with educating people, with students. It's just incredible, and it's powered by, the blood, sweat, and tears because we know it's important. And so one thing that came up that was interesting was that there's a big difference between commercial seed sourcing and sort of small scale seed sourcing. There are seeds available to the gardeners that are regionally grown, that are, that are local, they can save seeds from, but on the commercial scale, even for small farmers selling at farmers markets, they're almost all from purchased seeds. And of the farmers that we interviewed, and certainly in my area, it's even from a single seed company. And those are also the seeds that get donated to seed libraries. So we wanted to know, where exactly are those seeds coming from? Those seeds in all the catalogs and websites that we plant. And here's a couple quotes. The first one: if it's a common variety and the catalog doesn't list where the seed comes from, it is almost certainly purchased from the international commodity seed market. And a quote from somebody that works at one of these larger seed companies: for seed production, they have actively moved the productions from China to other locations around the world with established seed production companies and industries that don't currently exist in the USA. So for that company, no hybrid seeds are sourced in this country because those industries and skills don't currently exist anymore. We've moved them out. So you are probably familiar with this seed industry structure map by Phil Howard. It's this seed industry, the consolidation that's happened over the last 50 years. It's extreme and it's scary, but it doesn't take into account the consolidation of the seed supply chain. So each hybrid variety and also many of the commercial OP varieties are controlled by a single corporation, and they outsource expansion and production to other countries where labor costs are much lower because they are very labor intensive to create hybrids. So exactly how does this work? So it's going to take a one example of early girl tomatoes. And these are bred by Semenus, which is a subsidiary of Bayer. So they have their seed distribution farm in California. And then those seeds that need to be grown out and expanded to be sold in catalogs are sent to a few locations, not that many. And let's pick, there's India is a really common place to grow out these nightshades because they're really labor intensive. So they'll send them to an area, typically a village. So they're not giant farms. They might be 50 to 100 small farmers that are all doing the work within one region. And that way, especially for cucurbits or, non-self-pollinating crops, there's no fear of cross-pollination, and everybody knows what the program is, and everybody is growing one variety for one seed company. So that is something I've learned recently doing a deeper dive for this presentation. So then those seeds are sent back, often through a hub in the Netherlands, a Sementis hub, and then back to California, where they are then aggregated and distributed to many many seed companies around this country. So these are a few of them that you might be familiar with, but this list would be hundreds. And then those are distributed to the farmers, the seed libraries. And so I just think it's really interesting considering how the diversity comes from these a few locations back to the US, and then it's distributed everywhere, which means you have low biodiversity, both in the places where it's grown and on all the farms where these common varieties are grown. So we get the illusion that we're choosing from different places, but often that's from the commodity seed market is supplying these varieties. So hybrids are really labor intensive. They would cost 10 to 30 times more if they were produced in the US. That's why they're not. And there's a lot of research done on this, the child labor used in India, and that means exposure to pesticides and corporate control, almost like colonialism all over again, and loss of biodiversity in that region and where the food is grown here. So, what's the problem with that? For one thing, many varieties that come from very far away, they're not used to where we are now in our particular pests and challenges, and they don't grow well, or they're subject to all these pests and diseases, and we end up having to, if we don't want to lose our crop, we end up having to resort to things that, even if they're organic, pesticides, and just more labor and more feeling like we're a terrible gardener because we can't grow this common thing, but it's really not our fault. And then, of course, the supply chain issue. We're all familiar with this Strait of Hormuz picture at this point. And this, luckily, seeds aren't, held behind the Strait of Hormuz right now, but it could be something similar in the future where these seeds don't exist for us in this country. And so this is something we need to diversify now. And then a misalignment of values, right? If we knew more of how some of our seeds are produced, we probably wouldn't buy them. We would probably take more of an effort to do something different. And then, of course, the loss of biodiversity. It would be extreme to all end up with only white beans. You can see I love beans and I love bean diversity in all my jewelry today. And this is kind of the way, maybe there's movements towards more diversification in our seed system, but the big forces are still there consolidating the seed supply chain, and we need to work against it. So I'm calling 911 here. I'm calling this is an emergency. And so that informs my work. And these non-locally adapted seeds, you can think of it a little bit like this, where we need to protect them. And that just means that a lot of resources and potentially a lot of failure. So the benefits, let's talk more about the good things, right? So if we grow more local seeds, we will do better as gardeners because seeds will be saved from the healthy plants, and they adapt to your local environment in all kinds of ways beyond genetic selection. It's the microbes adapt if they're planted in the same place over a number of years. And there's epigenetic factors that help plants adapt to where they are. And then there's the community factor. People love getting together and saving seeds together. And it's sort of like this primal human thing. I feel like when it happens, people are really excited to do it. And then this learning new skills always makes people really proud. So here's this proud new seed saver. She learned how to save bean seeds. And then more beans, the diversity that we can protect and promote all around the world when we grow more of these open pollinated varieties that are really special and community owned and community selected and eaten. So another thing that came up in our interviews was that this really successful and active seed libraries that tended to have more participation had a lot of partnerships. So with schools, community gardens, gardening teachers, as Kay mentioned, gardening clubs, Army clubs, retirement communities, the list goes on. And I invite you to put in the chat what partnerships have worked for you. And this has been something that I've seen in my own community. We have an association with a garden where it's a community seed garden that's new, but so far we can see, and also over our past few years, we were working in a field where everyone would just love to come, be outside, be together, that in-person connection, and then seeing the crops grown over time, having an attachment to them, and then saving seeds together. So we're not all isolated in our own garden, saving seeds separately. And then I want to say that there's a challenge. I know we all have this challenge. We get these seeds and we don't know, are they cross-pollinated? Are they not? They weren't labeled properly. Maybe the person didn't know what they were doing, and it can be a challenge. And sometimes those seeds end up on the bottom drawer because we don't know, or they get tossed into the compost. And so one reframing that needs to happen if this is going to work, if we're going to have more local seeds, is understanding that, but celebrating the benefits where we can. So diversity can be a benefit, and I speak more to that elsewhere. And also it's going to happen. So it's going to happen that there are cross-pollinated varieties, even if the intent is to keep them isolated. So let's celebrate that, right? Like this picture on the left is so the old ideal. And also I want to say current, those are commercial hybrids, right? Everything has to be uniform and stable. And this picture on the left is a community food and seed crop in Mexico, and everything is delicious, right? We know they're all selected for being eaten, but they don't all look the same. And instead of labeling that as potentially toxic, I'll speak more about the toxic squash at the end. I saw that in the chat. Let's celebrate that as a strength, right? Diversity of squash, of plants, of humans. That is a good thing. And we need to learn a little bit more how to share that and teach that. And if we can do that, we can be more successful. So here's an example of this by hand seeds in Portland. They are doing some fantastic work. And you can see their example here where they have both heirloom and open pollinated varieties and mixes, and they celebrate that. This cabbage surprise Grex is really beautiful. So I want to say that it's not like you have to choose diversity over anything else. You can really have both and celebrate both. And here's another example. This is local to me here, where labeling, when you do this, and I'm speaking a bit more about this diversity because we're all used to the sort of keeping things pure, and so mixing it up as a way to expand what we can use and celebrate in our seed libraries is important. So labeling, and another benefit is that you can combine seed contributions as long as you combine and say, hey, these are contributed, they are local, and they're all kinds of, each plant may look different. And that is incredible because who wants 20 kale plants that are all the same? And here's another example of an adaptation project where adapting melons to our cold and foggy climate. So some next steps for you guys to sum it up are find more partners and collaborators, source from companies selling regional seeds. That list that someone shared in that previous talk was really great. Education and awareness, and not just on the how, but on the why. Some of what we're talking here today, sort of why it matters, why you should care, can encourage more people to come to the how. And celebrating those local seeds, put them in the top drawer instead of the bottom drawer. And labeling, and for those of you that already are labeling, I would love more inspiration, more examples to share. If you want to share them here or put them in the Cool Beans forum, Rebecca can post a link to the forum to share what you're doing, what's working, if you're willing to share the label that you're using. And yes, share successes and failures. So another thing, if you're interested, especially in this diversity component, going to Seed produce these seed saving guides with seeds. And I know there are quite a few melons that are still available, and they are free. The few that are left are free, and you pay for shipping. And we'd love to hear from you guys if you've been doing this, if it worked, what your tips are. I think this is challenging enough to get people to come back to engage over the long term, as Rania mentioned. It's so hard, and I think everybody faces that. And so all the ways that something works for you is important. And if you want to get involved with the Local Seeds Coalition, visit our website, localseeds.org, and sign up for our newsletter. I think a lot of you already are there. And this year we're moving into implementing what we laid out last year as what the needs are. And we're excited. Okay, so before I go to questions, this was the how do you avoid the bitter squash. And this is the main thing. Avoid all decorative squash varieties if you are saving seeds from any squash varieties. So there are multiple squash species. I think most of these decorative gourds are in the Peppo species, which will cross with pumpkin. So learning what's a Maxima species, what's a Moschata, and the Peppo is really empowering for knowing what can cross with what. All right, that was it, and love to answer any questions.
So at the moment, a lot of the questions are things I want to ask Rebecca. So I'm just going to ask a dummy basic question because I've been volunteering for a long time, but I still feel that the seed world is a very complex world. So can you explain why you'd want to keep something pure and why you'd want to cross varieties?
Yeah, well, I
Example?
think keeping something pure is so important for cultural reasons. For one, it could be important to your ancestors, and it should look this way, and it will make you happy as a grower or someone else happy to know exactly what they're getting. And I don't want to understate that importance of that. You want to know that if you're going to cook this soup, then you're going to have this flavor, and making sure that that option stays available, I think is crucial. And then as far as mixing, some people, the people that I know that are doing the mixing also keep other things pure. So it allows more freedom and it allows adaptation. Melons don't grow here, but my husband loves melons. I want to grow melons. So I've been able to adapt through that diversity and mixing and selection. And then someone else is doing for the same reasons a pepper project. And for us, sometimes it's being able to accept seeds that we wouldn't be able to accept. These brassicas are obviously crossed, so let's make a braising mix. They're still delicious. We can still give them out like freely, and people will like eating them. And sort of for some people, it's that discovery. Like I might find something new, and then I want to share it. And I think there's all kinds of reasons to do both.
And so apparently it's going to be very dry on the West Coast. So at the moment, I have 72 tomatoes sitting over there. And so I've been practicing at waiting longer to water them. So it's again like just to explain, I guess if it's something is pure, you know how well it does in certain environments. And then so when you cross things, you're taking a plant and I know this is very basic stuff for you, but I think that people can benefit from understanding these.
And one thing that keeping things pure, there's the benefit, right, is knowing what you're going to have. The trade-off is those can't, by definition, if it's been isolated for 50 years, it's an heirloom. And plants are really sensitive to inbreeding depression. We know that for humans and for pets, but we don't often think that plants are also susceptible, but they're more susceptible. So when you start mixing things up, even within an individual plant, you'll get more vigor, more disease resistance, and more ability to continue thriving in stressful situations. So if it's really hot, that really diverse plant will have more ability to bounce back and recover and develop relationships with microbes. There's more diversity of microbes when you have more genetic diversity. So
Yeah.
I can talk to that a long time, so I need to not.
No, but that it's just really interesting to understand because when I went to our seed event and I was explaining to people what cross-pollination and so many people aren't aware of this. And then the other thing that when you were talking, so can you also explain? So again, I'm sure people know this, but just explain what a hybrid seed is. I know it's very basic stuff, but I was explaining this at my seed event, and the average person didn't know what it was.
Okay, so it's a cross, intentional cross between two varieties of the same species. Usually, occasionally there's cross species um, hybrids, but I'm not talking about those here. So these are patented often or very proprietary, controlled by the seed company, and they are very inbred. And then when they cross them, they get that hybrid vigor of a second generation that is extremely uniform and it has the benefit of diversity. And so it'll be bigger, the offspring will be bigger than both and healthier and more disease resistance than both parents. So often they're combining traits and maybe they're GMO traits, maybe they're not. Often they're not. It's just a patented variety. And because they're usually controlled by chemical companies, you know, the big four chemical companies, they're bred with the idea that they will do well with, you know, more inputs. That's a controversial statement. Not always, not related, but we have to keep in mind that they're patented. We don't know what they are and don't necessarily align with our values of sharing and community spirit.
Okay, so there's also that aspect of the ethics or non-ethics behind them. Okay, wait. Um, so where someone asked, where can I find information about commercial seed operations and connections to Bear? People who come to our crop swaps need this info, and I agree because I saw West Coast Seeds on your list, and I was like, that's who I get my seeds from, and I, for some reason. So how can we access information to know?
You know what I'll do is I'll create a page that takes the research that we've been doing and the quotes and how to learn more, and create a page and do an email follow-up. Because
Okay.
it's kind of all over the place and you have to dig and they don't want you to know, right? They don't want you to know that almost no seeds are grown in this country. And when I tell people that, it's usually a surprise.
Okay, and then lastly, again, just to explain to people, so if all our seeds are coming from one place in the world, it means that they're more prone to disease, correct or no? Do you
Yeah,
know
you
what I
know, I
mean?
think it depends. You have a variety like Sun Gold and even Early Girl, they're super beloved, right? So many people, especially in where I live in Northern California, they grow those too. And they are not necessarily more susceptible to diseases. But in general, I think that I align with that statement. It's just, I don't want to make a specific for all of them claim.
Okay. And does anyone else? The others questions are more about seed packaging. I'll ask you maybe. Um, so this would be more for seed libraries, but if they're not pre-packed, do you provide scoops or packets for information, size per each species variety? Is that clear?
Um, for, can you read that again?
If they are not pre-packed, do you provide scoops and packets and information for scoop size per each species variety? So I guess how many each person should take.
I'll let Kay answer that in a second because I think that's a question for her. And for my particular project locally, we have enough volunteers we for this, and they kind of like sitting out and doing it. So we do it, and then we figure they have our label, they have all the information pre-done. So I'll let Kay answer the question about when a seed library does.
Okay. And how worried should we be about GMO seeds crossing into our local seed supply in Canada and the GMO tomato seeds are being sold to the public?
This is not something that I've done a ton of research on, and one reason is because as far as vegetable seeds, I, with the exception of tomatoes, it's not a big concern yet. But will we know when it is? That's a reason to stay away from the commercial hybrids. And I would say if you're growing corn, if you're buying tomato seeds, they don't cross-pollinate readily, so I wouldn't worry about your neighboring gardens. Though in or wheat, those sort of varieties that are grown with GMO and that cross-pollinate easily, yes, worry, but otherwise not yet.
Not yet.
There are
Okay.
so many things to worry about, though. I don't want to say don't worry, just don't, not yet.
Okay, and then with that last one, so what do you think are the top things that we should worry about at the moment?
I think it can be overwhelming to say, okay, we want to go 100% regionally grown seeds, right? So start step by step. We don't have to do it all in 1 year, but moving in that direction, I think is crucial for aligning our seeds, our seed libraries with our values, and for more success, local gardeners, they growth, all those reasons we talked about. So I would say choose a couple of things that you want to say, hey, we're going to try to have local seeds for this and move forward with that. And every year, maybe add a couple more. The second thing to worry about, I don't want to say worry, but maybe spend more effort on is those collaborations and those partnerships.
Okay, yeah, and like Kay said earlier, pick four things to start. I like this idea, and then everyone comes together, and then you're like, every year, let's add another seed.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's great. Okay, so I guess that's it for now. So we'll move on to Anita. It's a little, yeah, 2 minutes early, but we're doing good. That was really great. Thank you. So now I'm going to go into a deep dive of the seed, who owns seeds, basically. Okay, so the next speaker, and just so everyone knows, I will get to the questions in the chat. I just think there's other people to answer them. So, Anita Thompson is an extension agent for the University of Arizona Cooperative Extension in Navajo and Apache counties. She works with agriculture and horticulture programs, including the county's Master Gardener program. She also works with drone use in agriculture and small ruminant education. As a military veteran, she is focused on bringing sustainable agriculture education to fellow veterans through teaching and facilitating agriculture training. Her research interests includes geospatial technology, historical horticulture, organic agriculture, ethnobotany, lavender cultivation, use of native plants and seeds, growing heirloom and specialty seed, and the Arizona seed industry. Again, a very impressive resume. Take it away, Anita.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. All right. Can you hear me and can you see me?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So everyone, all the questions I get is like, why is someone from, the university talking about seeds and seed libraries? And I'll go into my like little about me slide in a minute, but I am personally one of those people that seed is a foundation of our life, and it is something that drives 99.9% of the things that we do, and especially when you're working within seed sovereignty and seed protections. So my presentation is about seed library and resources. And I will talk a little bit, I will kind of like, I want to hit on some of the points my previous panelists have made and expand on a few other things. All right. All right, so the plan for my presentation is just have a couple notes and then why do we care about seed saving and then some resources, some how to determine planting time, and then what to do about seed donations. For reference, before I left the agent job, and I'll talk about that in a second, I ran two seed libraries in Apache County and Navajo County in northern Arizona, and I also supported four libraries with as seed libraries. So I am um, newly joined as of this week the University of Arizona Center for Urban Smart Agriculture, or as we know, it's called Small Scale and Urban Agriculture. Um, I am a farmer and I'm a farmer by heart and I love growing things. I love seeds and I love herbs. I do love growing veggies and all those important things, but to me the seed has always been the foundation of my interest. And my farm is Double T Bar Farm. It's in Taylor, Arizona. I do sell seed, but I also give away a large amount of seed to local seed libraries because of the work that I do. I primarily work with heirloom seed with a few modern open pollinated, and that is going to be more of your Grex or your kind of like your land race varieties that I work with. I do medicinal culinary herbs, tea and tisane blending, and then essential oil and hydrosol distillation on my farm. I source all of my ingredients from local farmers. And by local, I mean more regional from in the Southwest. I do reach out to growers that are in the more Northwest for elderberries and things that don't grow as well in the Southwest. I do grow a lot of elderberries, but I try to like bring in the small farmer into all of my production. I do a lot of seed education and I am a historical plant nerd. If it doesn't have a story, if it doesn't have a family tie to it or something like that, I tend to lose interest in about 30 seconds. We talk a lot about early growth, things like that. There are heirloom replacements from Scotland, from different areas with colder climates that can be used to replace those and to keep those stories and those passions alive. Um, I also work a lot with tribal influence, so a lot with the Dene people and the Hopi people and the Apache. I assist with seed keeping. I don't own or keep seeds. I just assist with the what can we do to strengthen this variety and work within those tribal conversations that seed is alive, seed is family, seed belongs to the family and to the people. So I look at it from that lens. A lot of my programming sounds really fancy, but in reality, what I'm doing is I'm taking underutilized groups of people and allowing them to experience what has not been particularly provided. And in the military work that I do, PTSD suicide is a common issue. And so providing agriculture, and we're talking small scale agriculture, so working with the Land at Home project, they are a nonprofit out of California and Arizona that we do education on small scale restorative grazing, sustainable agriculture topics, things like that. And then even the drone use that I do, the UAS, everyone's like, why? And I'm like, well, because when you take a picture from the sky, you can see more than if you stand on the ground. So if you look at the two together, you get a good path of where a farmer needs to be, or you can even use it for gardening. We're looking at plant health. We're doing a lot of really cool small topics. And I am a practicing ecologist, which means I look at everything in a circular viewpoint. So never an ending and beginning. There's always a circle involved. So that's kind of where my background is. Um, I do a lot of education about seed legality because of the fact that there's a lot of gardeners that and seed librarians that don't understand how important it is to maintain our spot in the seed world. There's a lot of power. It's top heavy with power with a lot of like the, Bayer, Monsanto, Seminis, all these big groups, and there's not much power at the bottom. So the rules are being made at the top, and then the battles are being fought at the bottom. So what we're trying to do is provide that information and provide those resources so that it's accessible for the seed librarian to say, hey, I want to do this, but there's limitations and it's a gray area and we want to like maybe remove that stigma of what that gray area is. So seed libraries do have to follow seed law. Seed laws are normally held at the state level, but they're based on federal seed law. So there's something called the FSA or the Federal Seed Act. And state laws will generally follow federal law. However, and on indigenous tribal areas, on reservations, on areas that are legally owned by a tribe, the state generally does not have the same ability to regulate. So that tends to be a different area. Seed libraries, they have a fundamental purpose to provide seed to their communities. And so that's why there's a lot of like, well, okay, so here's the law, but here's where we're going to be, and we're going to kind of exist in this kind of gray area without getting too crazy. A seed library should never, ever, ever sell seed without permits. And then the legal sale of seed requires labeling and testing. I am a licensed seed farm in Arizona. I do carry both licenses required to sell seed. It was a nightmare, and I had to go through a lot of understanding to get there. Especially being a small scale farmer that does not provide seed on a larger open market. I provide seed specifically to a regional area, and my seed breeding is very focused. And I do want to clarify, I do fall under the category of a seed breeder, but basically what I do is I take lost heirlooms and I stabilize them so that whoever needs that heirloom, whether it be a tribe, whether it be a family, whether it be somebody else, whether it be myself and my own ancestry work that I do, that then will grow for gardeners, and they're able to then kind of make that seed more stable and last longer genetically. I don't work with hybrids. I don't work with GMOs. I don't work with anything along those lines. So I do have all my permits. It is very difficult. Seed libraries cannot require the return of seed once checked out. That is so, it's so, I think it's frustrating for a lot of seed librarians because they're like, this is the concept. We are a seed library. We should check out seed and someone should return it. That implies a sale or a transaction. And so, again, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to use a lot of legal terms, but that is one of those gray areas where it's like you can't require it. You can accept donations, and you can be like, hey, how can I teach you to return, this seed back into the system for everyone else to, enjoy it. However, it's not a mandatory requirement. And sometimes it's not what you want, especially if the seed grower is not very advanced yet and they don't understand pollination requirements. So it's kind of like it's double-edged sword. It's like it's not a great thing to be managed that way. However, it kind of does keep the future seed users, to be able to get a plant, or to be able to grow their seed out and get what they were expecting. Um, we have been seeing an increase in plant materials, like people are taking cuttings and bringing them to the seed library for like a live a live plant swap. That cannot be, you have to make sure that that plant material is not a patented variety. And it is really hard to find. A lot of times it's asking your master gardeners to do some research for you. And then seed libraries do have minimum packaging label requirements. And this is something that should be kind of discussed at a later point in time. But I do have a picture up on here of like Johnny's seed. They have the Selenova. You'll see something called a PVP, or plant variety protected. This is not always the case. Sometimes you have to do deep research, which is why a lot of times I tell seed libraries just stick with the heirlooms, because those are generally safe. Again, my fellow panelists talked about this. So there's 3 different main varieties, if you will, or kinds that we work with: the hybrid or the F1. The same seed will not be true to type. And true to type is the kind of the way of describing how the plant will grow once you plant that seed. So is it going to be what is packaged on the label, or is it going to be something completely different? The same seed from a hybrid will take on the qualities of the parent's genetics, but you don't know which genetics. It's never easily determined by looking at the plant, the original plant. So you might get, say, seed from a hybrid tomato, and you might get a completely unedible tomato. You might get something different. It's not worth the risk for the average gardener, especially in times of, when we're really wanting to encourage people to grow food and be more sustainable. And there's a high likelihood of patenting or varietal protections on hybrids. I think it's something like 98% of all hybrids are patented or in the patenting process. I don't have that exact data. I can't reference it right yet, but I know we were looking at that from the backside of what, how many of these hybrids are actually patented. Now, just a side note on that, there's something you want to look at, and I've got to remember the name. I know you, my panelists, can jump in, and I know some of the attendees can jump in. There is there's a group, and I'm part of it. This is horrible, but I'm not gonna spend too much time on it. It's for open pollinated non-hybrid protections, and I'm gonna look up that and then get back to you guys on that because I work within that group. So then there's open pollinated, which is generally heirlooms, but not all open pollinated are heirlooms. And the open pollinated, the saved seed will be true to type only if your appropriate pollination, separation, or spacing is followed. If not, you're creating a hybrid. And that's a generic statement. So the genetically modified is not the same as a hybrid. You're actually manipulating the genetics in a laboratory or a enclosed environment. They are always patented or protected. And then a lot of them require contracts or agreements. So I personally can't go and get GMO corn right now because I have to sign an agreement to be able to use that corn. There is rare occurrences of gardener access, and the biggest one is the purple tomato. There was a purple tomato that is coming out right now in the last year. And so that is a rare access where a gardener can actually go in and buy these seeds. But keep in mind, these seeds are $10 a seed, something like that. I can't remember what someone was telling me, but it was not something that the average gardener would look to do. So these are things that you can have, are not things that you can have in your seed library. Stay with your open pollinated. And then why do we care? So open pollination seed increases the self-sustainability of gardeners. It also it increases the ability for a particular variety to keep its story. It increases a lot of different things about the cultural side of our food environment, and that goes with cultural needs and beliefs. Again, in a lot of cultures, seed is life, seed is family, seed is a part of that culture, deeply ingrained. And so saving that seed maintains that story and that lineage and that line. And again, changing climates and environments. I'm in a high desert environment, but we're getting hotter. So I'm starting to push out more of my varieties towards more like Southwestern focused heirlooms. Now, just for the reminder, networking resources are important in seed libraries. Burnout is a real thing. The number one thing I see with seed librarians when we talk about it is how am I supposed to carry this huge weight? And then how am I supposed to carry this for a long period of time? Because our problems are not going to go away. They're just going to either, get better or get worse, depending on what happens in our society. So burnout is real. We can see seed libraries switch seed librarians really quickly. They stop randomly. There's just a lot of issues. So here's some resources for you. These are a few resources. They're not all the resources. So if you don't see your favorite resource up here, it's fine. Throw it in the chat. Help your fellow seed librarians out there. But this is one that I love, and this is a more advanced level. So if you're a seed librarian and you kind of just want to do your deep dive, Organic Seed Alliance, I work with them. They're amazing. They have this guide. It's called it's their seed saving guide, and it covers literally everything. So it's going to be your deep dive. They actually have a really amazing virtual class too. Washington State University, their extension is one of my favorites on this topic. They have a binder that you can actually, this is just a couple screenshots from it, but you can actually pull this binder off. Please make sure that if you do use it, send them a shout out, say, hey, look, I used your binder. Is there something I shouldn't, use, or what should I do with it? But they have a full-on binder and absolutely love it. It goes through 90% of everything from a basic seed saver should know. And obviously print it out. You can have it accessible there for you or for any of your volunteers, even for your patrons. Seed Savers Exchange. Love them. I work with them. I actually am one of the ones that works with some of their varieties. I have a Ghana pepper, and I have a few others that I'm working with that I'm really just trying to work on getting them functional and just amazing. This Ghana pepper is just like pepper spray and a little tiny pepper. This thing hurts, but it is a gorgeous little pepper. Um, and it's part of my ancestry project, so I absolutely love this particular pepper. So this is a great guide to be able to, it talks about your recommended isolation distance for seed saving, how it's pollinated, all this stuff. So I love this guide. I keep this on hand for anytime anyone was taking out seeds and they're like, I want to bring some back. What do I do? I was like, you know what? Here you go. This is, this is an amazing guide. I'm very Arizona centric. I'm sorry. I am a Coloradoan by birth. However, Arizona is my recently adopted home. And this is a great presentation that I love from from the Backyard Gardener program. And so this one actually is like a nice PowerPoint that talks about all these objectives, how to save wet seed, how to save dry seed, all these different really cool things that you can share um, with your different with your wow, big words today are hard, with the people that are getting your seeds. And then of course the Seed Library Network. I love the work here. So you should definitely have this on your resource list, especially because it covers things like labeling requirements and signage and different things like that. Now, if you are a new seed librarian or you're stuck and you're just like, what are my resources? You need to be chatting with your master gardeners. I no longer work with my master gardeners as of last week. I miss it to this day. They are an amazing resource and they are fiery little bundles of knowledge. I love them. And they will be able to answer a lot of your questions. If you are a master gardener, I challenge you to go to your local seed library. And if you're a master gardener that is working with your seed library already, go to your other master gardeners and be like, hey, we need to stop this burnout from happening. So, and I understand master gardeners get burned out. So, but seeds. So yay. Things to ask your master gardeners. What is the most common planting zone for my seed library? If you're bringing in seed that does not grow in your area, it's probably not going to be the best option. What grows well here and what should we avoid? In Arizona, in parts of Arizona, really, really cool tolerant plants struggle unless you're in certain time frames. So we focus a lot on, additional desert tolerant or heat tolerant varieties. What are our best growing seasons? In Arizona, if you're in Phoenix, it is the winter time. I'm up north in off the Colorado Plateau, so it's going to be a traditional growing season. And can we partner or help each other out? So here are some links. I'll go ahead and share these. This is like, for example, I have on here the University of Arizona Master Gardener Program. You can just Google your location if you are in the United States. Canada, you're going to kind of have to help me if you guys have Master Gardener programs. I believe you do, but I'm not sure. And then overseas, I'm not sure, what your guys' thing. You're probably with your local garden clubs. There is a mastergardenerextension.org and then a Find Us program to be able to identify your local Master Gardener groups. And then garden clubs, the same thing. I have an Arizona example. However, you can go to Garden Club or American Horticulture Society gardening, or your country's gardening clubs. Like, kind of, there should be like a database where you can find your gardening club, or you can post in Facebook and ask around if you're on social media. The big question is, how do I get seed, and how do I source seeds? Most common source, and again, this is a double-edged sword. Big box store end of season dumpster stave is what we call it. So the big box stores like to go and they get all their seeds and they put them in trash bags and they either go in the dumpster or they donate them. I have a slide on that in a second. I know I'm running out of time. gardener donations, community school 4-H garden donations, and grant seed company donations. Seeds are living things. They can be damaged by heat, moisture, mold, etc. Big box stores. Have the seeds been stored in a controlled temperature, and are the seeds hybrid or protected? Those are the biggest questions. I lose my mind when I go to Tractor Supply and Tractor Supply, but they go out into the greenhouse where it's 110 degrees. They have their seed rack out there, and I'm like, great, you just pretty much, I'm like killing all the seeds. And then they donate them to the gardens and to the libraries. And I'm just like, ooh. And then if you're getting them from gardener and community, are the seeds open pollinated and were pollination guidelines followed? If you do reach out to seed companies, again, 100% recommend, and it's a great way to start networking with your local seed companies. However, it's usually you're end of stock, overstocked, or unpopular varieties. And then you can be given varieties that are not suitable for your growing zone. They're maybe limited to a specific number of seeds or packages. And many times they want to see pictures so they can put it on their social media of seed distribution, people like loving on your seeds, things like that. That ending was really fast. So if there's any questions, I will go ahead and take those. And happy seed sharing. I'm so thankful to be with everybody.
Yeah, that was great. Okay, so we do have several questions. So, can seed libraries give out open unused packets of seeds of a hybrid from, let's say, Burpee? I don't know what Burpee is, but maybe.
Okay, so the short answer to that is going to be they can give it out. So you can give out seed, right? You can provide seed to your community, even if it's a hybrid. However, you need to make it known that's a hybrid, and you need to make sure that the gardener understands that this is a hybrid, they cannot save the seed. So, if we're wanting to, because SNAP benefits were cut and we're struggling with, food deserts and things like that, I don't want to keep people from getting seed at all. I want people to grow their food. They need to know though that this is not savable seed. They should not try to save it, and that this food is for eating. Like grow it to eat, not to
Okay.
save.
Okay. So someone said, love the local idea, but as climate changes, don't we also need stuff that will work in the new weather conditions?
Yes. And it would be great to have that magic 8 ball to see what that's going to look like, right? Because weather is like this, right? And climate is like this. And it's hard to predict where we're going to be. So I would go with the standard of what we think it's going to be, but maintain where we are right now and work within those two kind of climate predictions. So where we are, where we think we're going to be, and work within those. For my particular thing, I work with like more Colorado, Utah, New Mexico kind of variants, and then I push on the Phoenix, Mexican kind of like northern Mexican kind of varieties, because I know it's going to get hot and dry, but not every year is hot and dry. So,
Yeah.
where can I work in that?
So check out the Farmer's Almanac or whatever. Like for instance, they've said it's going to be super hot, so I should be planting plants that do well in super hot. Okay. And then someone wrote, would it be legally problematic to incentivize seed returns?
So again, it's a gray area and how you form it. I'm definitely not a lawyer, so I want to, make sure that I'm not speaking from a law perspective, right? But I want to say that how you're incentivizing is what's going to make or break the actual how that answer is going to be answered. So if you're incentivizing by doing a program, by doing like a grow out, by doing a neighborhood grow out or community grow out, you're all going to get chamomile seeds, and you're all going to grow out chamomile seeds to give back into the garden, then no, because you're community based. However, if it involves money or transactional, that's where the question is going to come in.
Okay. If we can get some big box store seeds, how concerned should we be about expired seeds?
So expired is probably not going to be your problem. A live seed is going to be your question, right? So they're not allowed to sell expired seed by law. It falls under the FSA, the Federal Seed, and I'm speaking from the United States again. So it falls within that guideline. However, a live seed is completely different. What I would do is take a couple packages, tear them open, do a quick seed germination test, throw them in a plastic bag with a paper towel and some water, see if they germinate. So if they germinate well and the seed looks healthy, then yeah, you're fine. But it's really hard to guarantee because a lot of that is not stored in correct conditions for living seed.
Okay. Um, so then, okay, so I think that's that. So I'll just go scroll to the top. So someone asks, I have a garden club, and that might be for Kay also, but that grew from 2 people to over 30. I use my volunteers to pack seeds. How many seeds do you put in each packet?
That's also a good K question. I will go ahead and answer from my perspective. And my perspective is that people walked into the seed library expecting it to be a seed business. So they would come in and be like, I want this many seeds and I want this variety of seeds and I want it to do this for me. And I would be like, no, it doesn't work that way. We would love to do that, but that is not financially or, appropriate. So we would give 10 to 20 seeds per, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to get people to be able to grow food, save seed, and be more reliant. So if I give them 20 seeds, they're not being reliant. They're just going to save seeds from the next year. So I want them to be reliant on themselves. So I'm going to give them 10, 15, seeds depending on what it is, and then I'm going to say here's the instructions for you to grow it out and increase your particular, seed library at home. That was my perspective. I know there's people that are in more maybe in an area that might think differently.
Okay, do you want to give your input on this as well? If you unmute yourself. Oh, I think, oh, maybe, or she started typing.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think, yeah, you're unmuted if you would like to
Am
give
I?
some. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is actually a better question for Julia. I think she has a group that prepackages seeds. And Rebecca, I think, has information on this as well. We do not prepackage seeds in our seed library,
Okay,
in
yeah.
any of our 12. We put in bulk seeds, we give coin envelopes to patrons, and we say, take what you will plant. I might want 5 seeds, you might want 20. So I'll take 5, you'll take 20. And it
Okay.
allows people to customize what they take.
But I like, Anita, what you said about making them aware that if they're taking that so that they can, that's a good way of wording it also. I've never heard it explained that way because then you're like, oh, so I'm actually planting this to start my collection. And then yeah, the other questions are, so that one was for Kay as well. Yeah, and then the other one's for Rebecca. Awesome. And then is there anything else that you think you can add? Because there's, again, I really like how you explained again, understanding. So let's say someone wanted to cross, they were interested in crossing. So how would you go about picking plants? So for like, if we go back to the climate changing question, so how would you go about choosing which plants you're going to cross together?
So I'll answer that from a perspective of a just keeping like if I'm working with like for example, I'm working with a 1940s tomato from Iran, Afghanistan, kind of Middle Eastern region because I'm really interested in making sure that I'm working with a group that this is their tomato and I want to, make sure that that tomato is healthy. It's been sitting in a seed bank, from the USDA and get it out and we grow it and we're like, ooh, there's some really great plants and there's some not so great plants. So the what I would do is that first year I would, just see where the plant is at. I would grow it out, see what the tomatoes are like, taste them, sit down with, the group that this plant belongs to and be like, is this what it's supposed to taste like? Is this what it's supposed to look like? And then we pick the healthiest plants and then those will be our seeds. And so we're continuing, this is a 3, 4, or 5 year process So then what we're doing is we're trying to continue to pick the best, most representative plants of that particular variety. And sometimes these plants don't even have a name. They don't even have they don't have anything. Sometimes their story is lost. So part of that is also connecting with the story to figure out, do you recognize this tomato? Has this tomato experience, been in part of your life before? What does it look like? What does it taste like? So then we're selecting over time to pick the healthiest and happiest of that particular, variety that we can then bring to back to the group, whatever, regionally, locally, whoever it goes to.
Okay. So, and that's it then. When we, in the follow-up email, we'll include all the links because I saw people were asking about the links that were in your presentation. So, okay, so now, thank you so much, Anita. That was really informational and awesome. So our last guest is Rebecca Newburn. So she's a prominent advocate for seed conservation and community engagement, having played a pivotal role in the growth and popularization of seed libraries. Co-founder of the Richmond Groves Seed Lending Library and founder of the Seed Library Network, which is who's hosting this. Rebecca has been instrumental.
Can't manage her screen right now. It's so funny. I'm like, wow.
Okay, so Rebecca has been instrumental in creating a resilient and replicable model for seed libraries across the globe. Through her initiative, she's championed the importance of preserving plant biodiversity, promoting sustainable agricultural practices, and fostering community collaboration. Take it.
Okay, seems like now my screen's fine, more or less. Okay, great, awesome. So first off, I am really excited to be here and that you are with us for Richmond Groves, which is the local seed library that I run. We just celebrated our 16th anniversary on May 1st. So it's really exciting to think about how do we have a sustaining seed library and one that's going to last and go the long distance. So with that in mind, I just wanted to share some of the tips, kind of some of the resources that I hope will aid you and inspire you in your community to have more locally grown seeds and to make sure you're in for the marathon and not for the short haul. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about systems. I'm very much a systems person, and like, how do you create systems that work? Talking a little bit about planting for seed saving, what might be some strategies or tools you might use for increasing returns, and then just kind of the educational component. So professionally, I'm a middle school science teacher, so education is kind of really at the foundation of what I did when I started the Richmond Groves Seed Lending Library. So first off, we have the idea of just like pace yourself. I'm not particularly good at following my own advice, but I do want to say it is worthwhile doing, which is our first year. We had to figure out like what's going to be a system that really embeds education in it. So we went through with the easy to save seeds from. So we basically organized it by plant family. And then we're going to get one seed saving class the first year. So that's kind of, we weren't even thinking about returns. Returns were like, that's way down the road. So I think pacing yourself is a really helpful thing to think about. And let's see, easy labels. So labels can take up a significant amount of your time. Whether you pre-pack or you have things in jars, that can be just such an amazing amount of time. So we have the auto seed wrapper that someone created. I just put that in the chat. And recently we had an intern who's graduating today as I speak, who worked with some of the native seed libraries. And so we have a link to some bioregional native seed wrappers as well. So basically it would have, you can see on this example here, this is just a vegetable one, but on our auto seed wrapper, it has 70 common species with the scientific name, planting instructions, seed saving instructions, and then you would put on the varietal name, the year, and a varietal description. With the native seed wrappers, we only have a couple of bioregions done, but we'd love to get some more. We have a desert Southwest, Pacific Northwest, Northeast, kind of US, Canada, and then like the Ottawa people gave us one. I think we have something from the Prairie region as well of the United States. So we would love to support people that, because that was an intern and that intern's now gone, we don't have the capacity to create more of them. But if you are from one of those regions and want to add on some species to it, we'd love you to share that back with us. Or if you want to do one for your own bioregion and it's not currently there, please share it back with us so that other people can just get their native seed libraries up and running and kind of support the larger community and obviously the larger ecosystem. And it's kind of been mentioned by a number of people, which is like local partnerships. So if you have partnerships, it's going to really help things flow. You as if you're a public librarian, you're probably not going to be able to do the educational piece on seed saving. So who might be some of the people that work with you that can do that? So I would just love to know, who are some of the partners that you are working with? And I know some people said some of that a little bit earlier. And then what services do they provide? So are you having someone coming in and teaching seed saving classes? Are you working with a particular group that's helping you with packing, assuming you do your packing of seeds? So just kind of thinking it might be nice to know who are you leveraging in your community so that everybody benefits from the resource that you're offering. So feel free to add them in and I will kind of visit some of those ideas in a moment. One of the things that we do is, like I said, I had to create a system. I work professionally full-time as a middle school science teacher. So I work full-time and run two nonprofits. So when I started the Seed Library, I was like, I need to have something that's going to go the long distance and that's not going to be super demanding on my time, because when we started, literally half of the librarians had been let go of. So we went from a 6 librarian library to 3. So I had to have no impact on them. So for me, I had to think about what were some of the ways in which we could create a system, whether I did it or I could pass it on to someone else, that would be something that would help us, support us. So I see in the chat that, let's see, working with Master Gardeners. Okay, they've been great, but haven't been able to provide on a hands-on seed saving class. So I did do, this is amazing. So we offer our seed saving class, which I think Anita pointed out in her thing. We have that as a resource. So if a Master Gardener wants to take that, that's great. Last summer, I did a seed saving class with Master Gardeners in the library, and it was like, no, it was in the demonstration garden. It was a 1-hour class. And I'm like, how can I teach a seed saving class and have it hands-on in 1 hour? And it was the best class. So if you're able to put a little bit of seed aside, such as beans and lettuce, and have people have that opportunity to get their hands in. It was mostly Master Gardeners, and they were really excited because they had not done much seed saving themselves in terms of vegetables. So it's a really great place to start if you are able to save some seeds or have someone bring in some seeds to do a hands-on piece. So back to this idea of a work party. Now, I would say, so we have a template, and I'm going to put it in the chat. And once again, this whole webinar with all of the people's presentations is going to be shared back with you later. But for me, I wanted to say, what can I do in order, like, what are some monthly tasks that we need to deal with? What are some maybe, seasonal tasks, maybe what are some annual tasks? And so this kind of was a way for me to kind of make sure that I didn't lose track of something while I was super busy. And I'm a big proponent of just setting repeating calendar reminders. So, this is the time when we go into our library and clean out any old seed. Once again, I know for some people that's not a problem because the seed is all gone and you don't have that. We're 100% locally grown seed collection. And so we grow a lot of seed and we donate a lot of seeds to the other seed libraries. And so on occasions, we do have to actually clean stuff out that's a little bit older. So having that as a planner, just it's time to refresh envelopes. So whatever you need, this is just a template to get you started. One of the things we actually, as I mentioned, we just celebrated our 16th anniversary. Woo-hoo-hoo. And like last year, we ended up having to move locations for a temporary 2-year period while the library is being renovated. And we also did a complete revisioning of our seed library. I don't think any, or maybe I have one picture on it. So let's see, is it on here? Nope, not there. Okay, so we redid our signage, and before we had done the thing, which is like, here's a star, it's super easy to save the seeds from, so peas, beans, lettuce, things like that. If you were trying to get more people to save seeds, or you're wanting to save seeds for yourself for the first time, those are great species to start with. What we did was we created our how to find seeds in the library with when to plant seeds, and then also how easy or difficult are they to save. This is for the San Francisco Bay Area. So this is not necessarily something that's going to work for you. Like you just can't take it and like going, we're going to put this in our library and go for it. Because we have, like Julia and I both are in a very cool coastal California climate. We can grow 365 days a year, and we don't have things like frost where we have to worry about things such as carrots that have to be pulled out of the ground in order to save the seeds from over, for the next year. But I would say that this is a good starting point for what we need to do to start educating our communities. And I'd love people to start developing these in their own bioregion. So just to give you a little overview, it is a calendar year. So this is the time to plant X species. And then, so you can see, for example, here in ours is in Spanish and English because we have a large Hispanic speaking population. So you can see that February and March are good times to plant fava beans. It's also a time to plant arugula, but that's also a good time to plant arugula if you're planning on going all the way to seed. And so what I like about this guide is that people, if they're going to the library, can see, oh, it's now May. These are all the things in this column that I can plant now. So they're not taking something like tomatoes and it's like, wait, it's too late to plant them from seed in this community. So they can see what exactly they can plant. And then it also tells them, you can also see on this column here where it says save, if they just planted one variety, for example, the fava beans, if I plant one variety of fava beans, I'm likely to be able to save it and to come out to seed. Whereas arugula, we're not really worried about other people's species, other people's varieties cross-pollinating. So this is just a great thing. And then also some things are just going to come out crossed, most likely. Your brassicas, there's so many brassica oleracea, we accept them. We just say, we're going to just label it crossed. So once again, this is just something to think about. I'd love to see some other communities creating these for themselves and then sharing back with others. Now, how do we work and create a system to close the loop? I would say that seed libraries have done a phenomenal job of getting people to know you can borrow seeds and take them home. Like people get that. People get, I borrow it, I take it, I plant it. That part we've got down. The saving piece, maybe need to like level up more classes, more signage in your seed library, more social media posts about it, do it, just like lots more touch points about how do you do it, how do you do it, how do you do it. And then I think the place where we really fall apart is then how do you get that seed back? Are you willing to take just a bag of unprocessed lettuce? Or does it need to come back clean? And so you and your library need to figure out what is your protocol for that. I taught a class on this a little while ago, so I'm going to put that in there. This is a worksheet that walks you through the process of what are we willing to accept, what condition, cleaned, uncleaned, pre-packed, not pre-packed, what conditions are we willing to accept. And so this worksheet will walk you through it, and then you can also watch the webinar that explains about, the whole process. So I just feel like we need to figure out how to close that loop if we actually want to get locally grown seed. So let me know how it goes. We are open to your feedback. Now, along with getting more locally grown seed, Kay mentioned this a bit in hers, and I think Anita did as well, is you can ask people to grow something for your seed library. So that's a Grow a Row program. So the Grow a Row program, you specifically say, would you be willing to grow something you currently have already that you grow all the way up to seed? Or do you want us to provide some seed for you that you can then return for us? And maybe, for example, we go through a lot of arugula, we go through a lot of cilantro, and we can ask people to specifically grow that out for us, or you can encourage them to grow something that they already grow and just make sure they get it all the way to seed and come back to us. The other idea is, and think about like who you might ask. So I do that with the Grow a Row with our school. And like I said, I'm a middle school science teacher, and I put it out to parents, and parents have often participated in our Grow a Row and our One Seed, One Community program where we all grow the same thing, because they're getting the support that they need. They know how to return it to us, but then they're also doing it in community. And that gets, and also when they have the kids pestering them to return it, that also helps. So I think that those are ways. We've also done a lot of Grow Rows where we've talked with, we're in an urban setting where we've talked with urban agriculture groups, and they've been willing to dedicate a certain part of their land for us to grow with the intention of sending it back to the community. So those are some ways in which you might be able to get some more people involved in seed saving, but also in returning. And so, as I said, we have these programs available where you can watch videos. It walks you through, these are going to be the links that walk you through the worksheet about how to host one. So those are all there. Once again, I'm going to send you all this later because I know I'm just putting a lot of things in the chat right now. So it's a lot to process. This is a sheet that Julia and I developed about a year ago around embracing diversity. So we have a very much yes and approach. When Richmond Grows started, our mission was how we understood that we are in this people of the pinch. We have lost so much genetic diversity from people not saving their own seeds, from this consolidation of seed companies, 4 mega companies that are all pharmaceutical and chemical companies owning 60% of the commercial seed. We understand we're in this pinch, and people are afraid to not do it right. So we are opening up to saying we're accepting more genetically diverse seed. And our mission originally with Richmond Grows, and we are still very committed to that, is we understood we have lost all this genetic diversity. How do we preserve that genetic diversity? How do we care about that? So we have done things such as a 100% Himalayan collection that's grown by Himalayan, like we have a Himalayan, one of my neighbors is from Nepal. And so we offer a 100% Nepalese collection, and we've done it in restaurants, in Nepalese restaurants, and Himalayan grocery stores. So we're getting those culturally relevant seeds into the communities. So it's not in the seed library. We've actually put some out into the community. So they're really getting into the hands of people that are going to steward them. And we also understand that we're in a very food insecure community. And so having, not accepting brassicas because, like broccoli, because it might have crossed, is not necessarily in our community's best interest. So we're looking at some of these genetically diverse mixes, starting with genetically diverse mixes, letting people, but it's really about labeling. And this sheet here about embrace diversity allows you people to see, am I getting what is in this collection, or is it likely to come out as diverse? So this is a great way to help identify what comes into your library local donations. Is it likely as labeled, or do you need to stamp it as a diverse mix? Because it may not be as indicated. But I would definitely say open yourself up to genetic diversity so that you can feed your community and also help us adapt. But also very much, how do we preserve those traditional varieties and get them into the hands of people that are really going to steward them? Now, why do we have, I just gave you a whole bunch of resources. And the reason why I'm able to give you so many resources is because this community is incredibly, incredibly generous. So on the bottom of many of our pages on our website, you will see these community created resources links. So you can see what people have created, and you can also add your own. And that's the way in which we're really going to build resilience in our community and in the larger. So we're all going to rise together because we're going to support each other in getting there. So if you have resources, please add them. Feel free to browse stuff, find stuff. People are giving tips about stuff. I am really excited. One of the new resources that's going to be coming down. We had 2 interns from UC Berkeley this year, and one of them just created a little seed saving coloring book about how to do beans. That hopefully I'm going to get done in the next week. I have to add the text to it. It'll be available in multiple languages. And the idea is to do a story time. So this will be available if you want to get it on your calendar, a story time about saving, like just saving. So find something you have in your library that's garden related. And then you're going to be able to give this adorable, adorable seed saving booklet to the kids and a packet of bean seeds for their parents. So be looking for, I'm going to be sending out something about that shortly as soon as I get the text in there. And then you can offer this little class and get the kids. And when the kids get involved, someone was talking about how do we get the kids involved? How do you get younger people involved? Get the kids involved. And if the kids start to save seeds, we're going to have a whole upcoming group of like bean breeders and savers. So look out for that. I'm really excited about that resource that we're going to offer. So I'm going to spend the last bit of time on answering questions. Once again, we have a newsletter that comes out, the Cool Beans newsletter. We're on Instagram at Seed Libraries. All of our past recordings from all of our conferences are available. This will eventually be on our conference recording page. As I mentioned, we also have a forum where you can post questions, inspiration, challenges, and then I hope you will join us on LinkedIn as well. So I will take questions. What is going on there, Rania?
So the first one was someone asked earlier about how it's the older demographic that's interested, but how do we attract younger generations to become?
Yeah, yeah, that's why I was part of the coloring book was like get them really young, like fill in the gap there. I think trying to figure out where are those people. Like I would say if you have a permaculture group that tend to run a little bit younger. I know my gardening club is more older demographics, but the permaculture guild is a lot younger. So that might be a way to go. I would approach, if you happen to be lucky enough to have a community college or college around you, check in and see if you can connect in with someone who's in their horticulture department, and then you can definitely get some people engaged in that way who are interested in this as a profession and that want to do something and get involved in the community as well.
And I just went to a local school to do a volunteer event, and all the classrooms were growing beans. So I was like, oh, that's also pretty interesting. But so is there anywhere you have seeds getting mixed up if people are packing their own seeds, i.e. seeds spilling or getting mixed in?
Are there any problems with seeds getting mixed up? Yes.
Well,
yeah. I mean, I can say I'm a middle school science teacher, and I'm just like, we're only doing one bean at a time, because I've had that where I've just like kids just grabbed another bag, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you just mixed 2 varieties that look very similar, and they were both. We were going to do a grow out program, and it was the Great Aunt Rosie's Italian pole beans and Louis Nicoli pole beans, both local varieties, and the kids just grabbed them and started mixing them together. I'm like, well, now this is the East Bay locally grown, but we don't know which one's which. So yes, it can happen. And I think that's when labeling comes in order, and if you're not sure about, so if something is a very easy to say thing like a bean and someone didn't mess it up intentionally, which I saw, or not intentionally, but whatever, you can also just save it and just still accept it, but just label it diverse mix. So I just strongly recommend having one of these little labels, and just, you can, if you're not sure about something, you can do that.
Yeah. And then when seeds are old and don't germinate, what is the best way to dispose of them?
Compost. Yeah. I mean, I went through my school seed library collection yesterday, and stuff that was older, I just had the kids compost, and stuff that was more marginal, I'm going to have a little sticker that just says older seed, over plant. Yeah.
Okay. How do you deal with a short growing season? Last frost is June 15th and the first frost is October 15th.
I am not able to, well, I will say, the land-raised gardening stuff that Julia was talking about, the going to seed, they're working with really incredibly genetically diverse seed. So if you have a really short growing season, you want to be getting local seed from local companies that are growing it locally, not just like it's a local seed company, but it really is a locally grown seed. And then thinking about also some of that genetically diverse mixes to see what makes it through. Oh my gosh, wow, we had a frost that came a month earlier than normal. So I think things like that will really support you in responding to those shorter growing seasons and wackadoodle stuff.
Yeah, and accepting it takes, you have to sometimes wait 12 months until you can try again also. So
Yes,
patience.
I've had someone go in my garden and pull all of our parsley out, and I'm like, it wasn't ready yet. That was a whole year we just lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the.
Oh, does anyone work with 4-H group? That is so great that someone mentioned that. So yeah, there are some 4-H groups that are doing that. There are also Girl Scout, Boy Scout troops. So getting that younger generation. I've definitely seen some of those youth groups getting involved. Yes.
Okay, so the next is a social organizing question. How can we encourage and uplift some of our seed library members to take on responsibilities within the seed library so it doesn't all fall on one person's shoulders to always organize events and education? It's a lot for one person to organize.
Yes, it is. I sometimes I'm guilty of being that person myself. I think being super appreciative of anything and anything that does, and having ways to acknowledge those volunteers. And one thing that I really like is finding out what people care about. If someone, for example, that intern we just had, she was focusing on academic libraries, and I was talking about wanting to do K-12 curriculum, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, oh, I love to draw. And I was like, and then she put together the cutest, most adorable thing. So I think if you find someone who likes to do something, they're more likely to take it on. And then if not, I think why having that work party structure that I had, at least they're not trying to take it on and figure it out. So I think if you can kind of figure that out and like, here's what you need to do, this is when you need to do it. And then if that person leaves, at least you can transfer it on to someone else. And maybe they even added some extra notes about how to make that process run smoother.
So getting clear on what needs to be done and then seeing what people's strengths are, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, so have you ever experienced opposition from native plant groups, and how did you handle that situation?
I did not have any opposition from native plant groups. We only have we have like a drawer in our collection that's native plants. Our focus has mostly been on food just because we're a food insecure community, but I also really value biodiversity as a person on this planet and wanting to support native populations and native seeds. Yeah, but there are definitely a lot of, just talking about native seeds and native people, there is definitely that's a whole topic in and of itself. Yeah. I want to honor and uplift that one.
And then there was a question about someone mentioned that the seed racks at local farm stores, hardware stores, grocery stores are decimated this spring. Are people, like if anyone else has noticed this, are people buying all the seeds, or are stores not stocking as much anymore because people are buying online? So I don't know if that would be a question for the discussion group or.
Yeah, I haven't noticed that, but I think when we go through periods where there's a little bit more angst about geopolitical stuff, or for example, like COVID, which is, on a larger scale, there was definitely a rush on seeds. So I don't know if, some of the current crises are making people a little bit more wanting to kind of grow and feel like they're able to sustain themselves. So I haven't seen that myself, but that is definitely a pattern that has happened in the past. Yeah.
And then, so I'm going to add the link. So just so everyone knows, if you're
Oh,
not
and thank you, Bonnie. I just want to say something. So Bonnie said collecting native seeds from wild places is not encouraged. So